For my video commentary, I have chosen to look at the Latin American film Y Tu Mama Tambien, specifically how this film and the sequence I have chosen represents Mexico on a local, national and global scale. Y Tu Mama Tambien is a 2001 Mexican drama film directed by Alfonso Cuarón, and it was co-written by Cuarón and his brother Carlos. They both have mentioned in previous interviews that this film allowed them to return to their Mexican roots. The film uses an amalgamation of different representations of Mexico, from the national to the local to the global, to help highlight the changing aspects of Mexico at this time. The film is a coming-of-age story about two teenage boys, Julio and Tenoch, who take a road trip to the beach with a woman, Luisa, who's in her late 20s. Typical of a road movie genre film, the journey is the most important aspect of the film. The characters develop as the film progresses, but the central narrative is all about their trip. What makes this film interesting and shows it branching away from the typical road movie genre is that there is the presence of Luisa, a female protagonist who is just as vital to the plot, which is slightly different to the typology of the road movie genre. The film is also part of the road movie genre because the protagonists are on the edge of society, and the whole central narrative is about them transcending borders and travelling across the country in a mechanised vehicle. It has been suggested that outside the car is the real representation of Mexico. In Mexico itself, the film earned $2.2 million in its first weekend in June, making it the highest box office opening in Mexican cinematic history. On the surface, the film has been said to be a sexualised story about sex between men and women, which is what contributed to its popularity at the time. However, when you scratch beneath the surface, it is a critical commentary and reflection of Mexico. Cuarón uses a low-budget road movie with young actors and semi-improvised scenes, depicting Mexico and its perilous nature of life, which highlights the national spectacle. The film is part of the road movie genre set in 1999 against the backdrop of Mexico's political and economic realities, specifically at the end of the uninterrupted 71-year line of presidents from the Institutional Revolutionary Party and the rise of the opposition by Vincent Fox. Certain aspects of the film, such as discussing political aspects of Mexican society at the time the film was set, such as the Cerro Verde massacre, shows the government position at the time, further highlighting how the national level impacts the local and global. In my opinion, the film is a search for identity, breaking boundaries of country, class, race and sex. And Cuarón wants to highlight a reality of Mexico that many were unaware of. The sequence I have chosen to analyse is fairly near the beginning of the movie. It's one of the first real developments of the plot, as is when Julio and Tenoch meet Luisa at the traditional Mexican wedding.
Hola. Mucho gusto.
Hola.
Hola. Hola. Hola.
¿Qué tal?
Hola. Oye, ¿no te aburre todo esto?
No.
No. Ay, ni tantito.
Bueno, un poquito.
¿Sí? Sí, ¿no? Oye, ¿tú de dónde eres,
De Madrid, España.
Órale, ¿y qué estás haciendo aquí?
Es que mi marido es de la familia.
¿Pero del novio o de la novia?
No, de la novia.
Ah, órale. ¿Ya has visto cómo me han dejado? Sí, tú, güey.
Luisa Cortés era huérfana desde los 10 años, cuando sus padres murieron en un accidente automovilístico. Desde entonces creció con su tía abuela, una solterona franquista que enfermó, y estuvo bajo el cuidado de Luisa sus últimos 5 años de vida. Luisa vivió con ella hasta los 20 años, cuando se casó con Jano. Meses después, al morir su tía, perdió todo vínculo familiar en el mundo.
Ay, no, niña, ¿pero qué es esto?
Este par de babosos.
No puedo presentarte así como presidente.
Silvia, esto
Mira,
con un poco
otro
de
día,
otro traje.
Otro día, tía.
No,
Con
yo
sal.
quedé con él.
Sal.
Otro traje.
Jalo, Luisa.
No, no me hagas
Cuidado.
esto.
Cuidado. Estate pendiente de mi madre. Oye, ¿eso es tu marido?
¿Sí? ¿Por qué?
No, así nos llevamos. Es que es mi primo. Es su primo. Sí.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Yo? Tenoch.
¿Tenoch?
Sí.
¿Tú eres el enano de Tenoch? Yo te conocí cuando vine a México antes de casarme.
Ah.
Sí, eras un criaje. Y llorabas mucho porque querías un Thundercat o algo así.
Un Thundercat, sí,
¿Te
oye, qué
acuerdas?
buena memoria. ¿Qué fumas?
Gracias. Estás hecho todo un hombre, ¿eh?
Ay, muchas gracias. Oye, ¿y qué? ¿Hace cuánto llegaron? ¿Llevan mucho aquí?
Casi un mes. Jano va a dar una conferencia en la universidad, pero no empieza hasta septiembre.
Bien, ¿y qué? ¿Se van a ir de vacaciones o algo así?
Él tiene que ir a Villahermosa a una reunión de becarios y yo me tengo que quedar a poner la casa y algunas entrevistas de trabajo.
Claro.
Y bueno, si hay tiempo, claro que me gustaría ir a la playa. ¿Y tú?
Nosotros vamos a ir a la playa.
A Puerto Escondido. ¿Verdad? Jaro me ha hablado mucho de ella.
No, Puerto no, es de hueva. No.
¿Es bonita?
Ay, ahí va puro guarachudo, fresita y surferos de cuarta, ¿no? Para nada.
No, además la playa que nosotros vamos es una playa donde nada más los pescadores de la zona, nada más.
Ey.
¿Y cómo se llama?
¿Boca de qué es,
Del cielo.
Boca del cielo. ¡A huevo! Es hermosísimo, no sabes qué trae. ¿Cuál paraíso, güey? Es el mismito cielo, pero vuelto mar.
Vuelto trópico. Bueno, acá es como una mordidita así de nube y cielo, pero acá.
Pero acá la tierra echando su raíz.
Oye, pues podría venir ella aquí, ¿no?
Claro, ¿por qué no vienes con nosotros?
¿Yo?
Sí.
¿Y me llevaríais?
¿A Wilbur?
Por supuesto.
¿Y hay dónde dormir?
Sí, ¿dónde dormir? Pues, ¿qué más que la tersa y cálida
a
arena?
gusto.
Con ese techo hermosísimo de estrellas.
A gusto. No, y de beber podemos llevarnos, bueno, ya hay cocos y ya nos llevamos unas caguamas y
¿Qué es
unos
eso?
mangos.
Litronas, ¿no? Le dicen
Ah, sí.
ustedes.
Pues a Jano le va a encantar. Son mariachis.
El presidente se fue una hora más tarde. Tenía una reunión urgente con el Comité Ejecutivo Nacional de su partido para decidir los candidatos en las próximas elecciones. A las 10 de la mañana del día siguiente, manifestaría su indignación por la masacre en Cerro Verde, negando la participación del gobernador del estado en lo sucedido. Después de darles las condolencias a los familiares de las víctimas, viajaría a Seattle a un encuentro mundial sobre globalización.
In order to analyse this sequence effectively, it has been necessary to rely on Graham Roberts and Heather Wallace's introducing film book. The scene in particular highlights the representation of local, national and global within the film. The local was shown through Tenoch and Julio, the wedding itself, and Tenoch being Jano's cousin. The economic injustice between the waitress and the affluence of the wedding shows Mexico on a local level being destroyed by their apparent economic prosperity, which also destroyed them. The line...
No, además la playa que nosotros vamos es una playa donde nada más los pescadores de la zona, nada más.
shows the local influence being the most important and respected. On a national level, the president's at the wedding, there is the presence of a rodeo and a mariachi band, all stereotypical Mexican aspects. On a global level, the mention of red wine and 40s, which Luisa doesn't know what they are, further shows the US influence within Mexico. Luisa is also from Spain, highlighting a global influence, which also links on national stereotype being relevant to a global audience, as they are able to see Mexico in its stereotypical form. The white dress is also westernised, considering that the men are all in black. Within this sequence, information is communicated through two ways. It changes between dialogue and an omniscient narrator. The omniscient narrator is used to provide essential character development as he expands on the characters with personal stories. The stories told by the narrator are often sad and contradict the shots they are partnered with.
Luisa Cortés era huérfana desde los 10 años, cuando sus padres murieron en un accidente automovilístico. Desde entonces creció con su tía abuela, una solterona franquista que enfermó, y estuvo bajo el cuidado de Luisa sus últimos 5 años de vida.
The narrator helps to combat the alienation felt by the viewer as you are able to learn more about the characters. However, he also reminds the viewer that Mexico is not as affluent as the wedding setting. On the one hand, this sequence does conform to the Hollywood narrative model. The road movie genre means it is accessible for more audiences, not just Latin American ones, and yet it has reimagined this genre to reflect Mexico's geography, politics, people and culture, in an attempt to only borrow the pleasure and entertainment of Hollywood cinema to synthesize with the political and cultural exploration of Mexico. However, some critics have said that this film is a rejection of commercial production techniques, therefore it only conforms to certain aspects, but this film has a much deeper message in highlighting Mexico to a global audience. In regards to mise en scène, the sequence is set in a wedding in Mexico in 1999, which is highlighted by certain Mexican signifiers such as the mariachi band. The mood is one of anticipation, meeting a new protagonist, which is integral in the development of the plot. The characters are suggested to be affluent but also prosperous as they have alcohol and are wearing nice clothes. In relation to costume, Luisa is from Spain, and this is highlighted by the fact she's wearing white and standing out. She is very westernised and does not belong, further highlighting the global aspect. The mariachi band are a typical Mexican stereotype, highlighting the cultural aspect but also linking to global because views can associate with them due to stereotype. The costumes also suggest that Julia and Tenoch seem much more immature and can be seen to be much younger than other characters, including Louisa in the shot. This can be seen through their slightly too big suits and scruffy hair in comparison to Louisa's perfect hair and outfit. The lighting is natural lighting, meaning it's more low-key than high-key. This links to the cinematography of the documentary style of the film, which will be discussed later on. The characters come in and out of the shot. Louisa, Tenoch and Julio are positioned slightly off-centre, which supports this documentary style of filming. The two boys are very, very close to Louisa, almost penning her in, which links back to the sexual nature of the film, foreshadowing their attitudes towards her. It has been said that she is the rose between two thorns. In regards to cinematography, instead of using high-tech equipment, the entire film was shot with a handheld camera to create a documentary realist look that mimicked candid footage. The camera is static within this sequence, however wobbles to fully highlight the fact it was filmed on handheld cameras. The depth of field is shot within depth of field to an extent as can clearly make out what is occurring behind. However, the shots were filmed with a standard lens, only zooming when having private conversation before zooming back out again. Within this sequence, when discussing camera position, I have found there are three main positions to discuss. It starts off as a wide-angle, long shot, helping to reinforce documentary-style lack of fancy editing. It then slowly zooms in when characters discuss things in private, further highlighting the intimacy. In functions, it's documentary style, which allows to see the whole scene, setting and outlook. This effect means the viewers feel like they're a fly on a wall with a straight-on camera angle. In terms of editing, there's no real fancy editing within this sequence. It's a fixed sort of shot. In this sequence, the scene is 3.5 minutes long before we see a sharp cut and change in scene accompanied by a cut of music. When following the waitress, scene cuts from her walking outside to walking through wedding to walking through the kitchen, using the pillars as a point of changing scene. They aren't even cuts. It applies abrupt change in pace to highlight the different aspects in Mexican society, further showing the rich and poor separation. Finally, when analysing this sequence, it's important to talk about sound. In terms of diegetic sound, it's a documentary-style sequence, as mentioned before. The dialogue between the characters is prominent, but you can also hear background people cheering, further highlighting the fly-on-the-wall style. The mariachi band provides a happy, upbeat tone, when in the background there is a tannoy, as well as the rodeo and horses. The sounds are much more realistic, it's not like a movie, further highlighting documentary style. It breaks up the dialogue and ends the scene. In terms of non-diegetic sound, it is clear from the omniscient narrator that this is present.
Se fue una hora más tarde. Tenía una reunión urgente con el Comité Ejecutivo Nacional de su partido para decidir los candidatos en las próximas elecciones.
This narrator talks about different things to the scene depicted, discussing real-life political issues, such as the Cerro Verde massacre.
10 de la mañana del día siguiente, manifestaría su indignación por la masacre en Cerro Verde, negando la participación del gobernador del estado en lo sucedido.
This is different between the light scene depicted. In conclusion, this scene helps represent Mexico on a local, national and global level within this film. Through its imagery, representation of characters and interlinking of all these aspects, Cuarón effectively enables a global audience to explore Mexico. Although on the surface it seems like a sexualised coming-of-age story, deep down it is a story which helps to express the hardship Mexico faces on a daily basis. This sequence is integral in this representation as it highlights all three of these aspects. Thank you for watching.